Hi and welcome to this new video, and this video is part 2 of the dive gate series, and we're going to be working in the same scene again. So this is SFPV VRL4 on the coastal scene, and the place where we're doing all of our dive gate action is over near the crane, the big crane. So there's the big crane, and here's one dive gate, and then over there is the other dive gate. So those are the dive gates we're going to be playing with. So I'm just going to set my quad down here at a reasonable start point in order to fly this stuff. This will do here. I'm going to hit L to assign a custom reset point so that if I crash I'll always get reset to this point. And now we can get into it. So in the previous video we covered doing a flat spin, well, flat yaw I should say, a flat yaw and then a throttle cut drop through the dive gate, which I'll just quickly demonstrate. So we were flying past it, doing a yaw spin, coming back, throttle cut, fly back through. So that's what we did in part 1. In part 2 we're getting more complicated, so I'm going to break this down into several parts. There's the approach, which is important on a dive gate, how you approach the dive gate. There's the roll, because we're going to do a roll now to roll into the dive gate, and then there's the pull out as we come out the other side, and each of those parts has different aspects to it. So if we take the first one, the approach, one of the things we want to make sure we do not do when we're approaching a dive gate is approach it at an angle like this and then try and roll around and then come back through it. And the reason we don't want to approach it at an angle is because if we end up over here and then trying to come down through it and play out, you can see there's a leg in the way which we're then going to have to move in order to avoid. Whereas if you approach it straight like this and then roll, you can see our exit point is clear and we're going to come straight back out the way we came in. So that's rule number 1, is in our approach we need the approach to be straight, and if it isn't straight then we're going to have problems during the exit phase of the maneuver. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is that when we're learning how to do this roll and dive into the gate, we want to kind of get a bit more height. So we get nice and straight and then we get a bit more height. And the reason we want a bit more height is because we need a bit more time as when we're learning this to kind of aim up and make it back through the gate. So we don't really want to follow this line of cones and trying to flip in from here, because it really doesn't give us very much time. It's okay for me because I'm used to doing it, but as a beginner you'll find you're really short on time to position the quad if you try and follow that line of cones. So what we want to do instead is we want to come down here, get nice and straight, and then power up, get up nice and high above it, then roll around and then kind of aim and come back through. It's slower, but it gives you more time to position and maneuver your quad to get through that maneuver. So that's the second thing. Let's go up high, let's not follow that line of cones. The third thing is we want some speed. When we roll our quad, we want to be in the position that once we've rolled we're still flying backwards through the air but looking down at the ground. So we want some speed. So I'll demonstrate that and put a bit more speed into my quad so that when I roll I'm still drifting backwards. See how I was drifting backwards still after the roll? If we do that again, get a bit more speed on, roll, and we're drifting backwards. We want that drift backwards. That's the next thing. Important that we have that. Third thing, when we do our roll, we're just doing an ordinary roll. Just right or left, whichever way you want to go. We're not doing an axial. We don't want to do any of this stuff or any of this stuff, sticks together, sticks apart. It's just a roll on one stick. And the reason we're just rolling on one stick is because that will point the camera down at the ground. So if you watch now, when I get up above this, get nice and straight, up above it, and I roll, it's pointing me down at the ground when I do that. If I did an axial roll, I wouldn't get the same effect. So if I come up here and I go, hey, yeah, I need to roll now. Oh, where am I going? So we just want an ordinary roll. That's the next thing. So straight approach, come down, straight approach, power up, roll, look down, and then power back through. That's the maneuver we're trying to create. Now the reason I said to get some speed up so that we're drifting past it is because we want to kind of watch it go below us and then hit the throttle to aim on it. So we want to be drifting past it. Now if we're not drifting past it, if we don't get that speed on and we're not drifting past it, this kind of thing can happen. Or never made it. Never made it to the dive gate, and there's just no recovery from that other than a go around. You know, oh no, I'm not going to make it again. So you want to have that situation where you're just going to go past it and then you can power up and come back at it and out. And actually you can go quite a long way past it and still make it through one of these. See, I'm right the way back here, but I can still see my way back through it. Ideally you want to be directly above it when you do your positioning, so you come back down like this. Yeah, this is nice, but you know, that you may not get the timing right. It may not always be the case, but the key thing you don't want to do is come up short. So you just don't want to be in this situation where you roll and oh no, didn't make that, and then it's a go around. So you want to be aiming to go past. You want to be drifting through the air backwards, and then you can position and come back through, and it just makes the whole thing flow and feel much easier if you're drifting through the air backwards while you're looking down. So it just gives you that little bit more room to maneuver, I guess. You can be a bit more violent with the throttle with your positioning if you're drifting backwards through the air, whereas if you've come to a complete stop, it can be very easy to put in enough throttle that you actually end up overshooting. So if you kind of come to a complete stop and then you go for an adjust and oh no, missed again. So getting that drift past whilst looking down is really key to allow you to just kind of use the throttle to position and come back through. Okay, and then the last phase is your exit point. Now if you've got a straight entrance onto it and you've gone up reasonably high, you've got your drift past, and then you're coming back through, then really it's just pulling back. Let's just get this call on the ground so I can show you the sticks. As you come through the dive gate, it's just pulling back on the stick and adding a bit of throttle to pull out, and that's all there is to it. So if we just complete the maneuver one more time, come in, get ourselves straight, up high, power on, drift past, power back onto position. Kind of went a little bit offline there, but you get the idea. So you get a nice position on it, power up high, turn, come back through. Nice. Okay, so that's the maneuver on that gate. What about this one? Because what we learnt in the first video was that this gate here is really hard to do with the kind of position yourself and throttle cut through it. It's too small. It's just really hard, you can't see what you're doing, so you need the dive type approach to it. And what we saw when I did the first video was that if you kind of come out here and then just try and dive down at it, I mean there's a chance you make it. I've pulled it off for that time, but you need to be moving really slowly, and in a racing situation you're going to come through here at speed. You're going to become flying through here, so you need to turn and then it's the power back through, and I've actually overshot it on the way back. You can see that when you're doing a big dive gate like this one, your throttle fidelity has got to become much better. You've got to be much more gentle on that throttle to get yourself back through there, because it's really easy to overdo the throttle and miss that gate. So if we go back up here again, come through here, spin, and then boom, straight through. So it's just a little bit more control on the throttle to do it. The maneuver is exactly the same as the smaller gate, just got to be a bit more careful on the throttle as you do it. Okay, so that's it for this video, and I'll see you on the next one.